Welcome to Stories for Wonderful Children. I'm Basil Wendelin, wonderful child and one of the original listeners to these tales. I can't believe it's been 5 years since I first heard this story. We're approaching the end of the tale of Myra and the online school for adventuring. Things are starting to happen pretty quickly for Myra and her friends, so hold on, listen carefully, and enjoy the next part of the story.
As she headed back to her room after their meeting in the cafeteria, the thing that Myra was second most worried about was how she was going to find something nice to do and write a paper about it that didn't involve the fate of the world. The thing that she was most worried about, of course, was obvious, but she just couldn't at that particular moment. She needed to deal with the thing that was right in front of her. Tweety was walking next to her, and Myra had hoped that Tweety would have an idea that she could use. And Myra was doubly hoping that this idea had nothing to do with stalker llamas. Tweety took a deep breath and said, "So, the stalker llamas..." Myra went, "Oh," and Tweety went, "have nothing to do with this idea." Myra sighed with relief and then said, "Hey, you're yanking my chain, aren't you?" Tweety shrugged and said, "You look like you needed your chain yanked a bit." "All right," said Myra. "So what's this great idea of yours?" "I didn't say it was great," said Tweety. "I just said it was an idea, and you don't have any, so this one's mine." "All right," said Myra. "So hit me with it." "Well, I happen to know that it is Corin's mother's birthday." "Yeah," said Myra. "And he wanted to send her a letter, but he forgot, and now it's not going to get there in time." "Yeah," said Myra. "So," said Tweety, "I was thinking that you could take the letter and then fly to Corin's parents' house on that griffin that you've been learning to fly, deliver the letter, and make it back here."
Is she on the no-fly list?
"That's why it's a thing that she's not supposed to be doing."
Oh, yeah.
Myra said, "That sounds hard and also fun, and I suppose I can't be any more on the no-fly list than I already am." Tweety shrugged. "Well, they could keep you from taking lessons." "I suppose I could ask Willow to fly me," said Myra. "You could," said Tweety, "but then you wouldn't really be doing something that you weren't supposed to be doing." "Point," said Myra. "Okay, well, I'm going to think about this." Tweety shrugged. "The first step would be to get the letter from Corin," Tweety said. "No," said Myra, "the first step would be to figure out if I can even do this, because the worst thing would be to tell him I'm going to do it and then not be able to." "Fair," said Tweety. "So let me know if I can help." "Oh, you're helping," said Myra. "This was your crazy idea. If I'm going to do it, you're going to be helping." "How am I going to be helping?" said Tweety. "I don't know," said Myra, "but in some way you're going to help with this." Tweety shrugged. "All right, well, let me know when you figure it out." Myra took a long, slow walk around campus, sort of casually looking at doorways. She only got as far as the sneaker building and had finished examining all the doors for it, not finding any runes, when it came to her. And so she headed over to find Corin. He said, "Hey, Myra." "Hey, Corin," said Myra. Corin said, "I had a lot of fun the other night on our date." "You know, Corin," said Myra, "I did too. I have to tell you, I did not know you were going to be there." "You didn't?" said Corin. "No," said Myra. "That's a long story. It was a surprise to me, but it was a good surprise, so I had a good time. But anyway, Tweety tells me it's your mother's birthday?" "Yeah," said Corin. "I was going to write her a letter, but, I got distracted with everything that was going on, and fighter classes are really getting brutal, and I forgot. And I'm going to mail it today, but her birthday's tomorrow, and, that means it won't get there for probably 3 days. Listen, said Myra. Well, are you done with the letter? I am, said Corin, drawing it out of a pocket. Why don't you give it to me, said Myra, and I'll make sure it gets there tonight.
Sounds threatening.
Okay, said Corin. How? That's the part where you're just going to have to trust me, said Myra. Have you heard the phrase plausible deniability? Yes, said Corin. That's my gift to you, said Myra. So, okay, said Corin. I don't want to know. Sneaker business, right? Myra nodded solemnly. Sneaker business, she said. And then she said, well, I better get on it if this is going to get there. Okay, said Corin. Thanks? You are welcome, said Myra. Thank you. She then headed back to her dorm room and collected Tweety. The part where you're going to help is here, said Myra. Okay, said Tweety. Fair enough. What's my job? Well, said Myra. That's right. You are going to be the distraction. Uh-huh. And also the cover story, said Myra. Uh-huh, said Tweety. Okay. So here's the thing, said Myra. Like, stealing the griffin is easy. Stealing the griffin and not being detected, that's the hard part. So you are going to have to provide a reason for the stables to be closed until tomorrow. Uh-huh, said Tweety. And, like, what would that be? Well, said Myra, here's the plan. I want you to stub your toe on one of the support pillars for the stable, but I want you to actually kick it really hard, like crack it through so that it looks like it's really weak, and then we're going to convince them that they better have it inspected for termites because it broke so easily. Can you, just out of curiosity, kick through a support pillar? Oh yeah, said Tweety, no problem. Great, said Myra.
Like he's done it before.
And then, when they shut down the stable for inspection, I'm going to take the griffin and fly. There is a problem with this plan, said Tweety. What's that, said Myra. If they're busy inspecting the stables, aren't they going to notice that there's a griffin missing? I was sort of hoping that they would have to wait for like a termite inspector to arrive, said Myra. I think, said Tweety, that I have a better idea. Really, said Myra. And what might that be? Toxic gas, said Tweety. I beg your pardon, said Myra. Well, said Tweety, you know how volcanoes emit toxic fumes and such? Yes, said Myra. Well, said Tweety, rock are capable of emitting such fumes from time to time. Huh, said Myra. And so they would have to evacuate the stables. Yes, said Myra. And there might be a lot of confusion, said Tweety. But you might get in trouble, said Myra. Just sometimes it happens. It's very embarrassing, said Tweety. Okay, said Myra. You sure? Trust me, said Tweety. Just come help when they call for help. Got it, said Myra. And so she waited. Tweety went into the stables, and a moment later she heard a great deal of yelling and confusion, and Tweety came out saying, I'm so sorry, I didn't know it was going to happen, but yes, everybody better get out. And she saw the stable master telling the stable hands to quickly get all the griffins and hippogriffs out of the stables, and Myra came running up and said, what happened? And the stable master said, there's toxic gas in there, we've got to move all the animals out. And Myra said, okay, oh no, I've got to go get my griffin. What did we name the griffin? Anybody remember? Nope, we don't care. I've got to go get Pebbles. I've got to go get my griffin. And so she ran into the stables and led the griffin out. And then she ran back in and got another hippogriff. And then she saw that both the stable hands were busy with the one wyvern in the stables. She ran back out, mounted the griffin, and dug her heels in and flew low away from campus, staying low with the stables between her and it, and she flew up over the treetops at the edge of the forest and then made a wide circle around until she found Corin, still where she had left him, sitting on a low wall outside the fighter building. She landed. He said, "Whoa, I thought you were—" "No time," said Myra. "Where does your mother live?" "Oh," said Corin.
Definitely a detail.
"Right." He quickly drew her a hasty map, and she headed off. The flight was, after procuring the Griffin, uneventful. By the time Myra arrived, it was starting to get dim. She slid off the Griffin's back, walked up to the door of Corin's house, and raised her hand to knock, but Corin's mother opened the door before her knuckles hit the door. "Myra," she said, "is everything okay? Is Corin okay?" "Yes," said Myra. "Everything is okay. Corin is fine. He wanted to send you this letter. Happy birthday." Oh, how wonderful," she said. "Won't you come in?" "I would love to," said Myra, "and I would love to learn those sneaker tricks that you know, but actually I have to head back to school right now because I have a paper to write." "Well," said Corin's mother, "thanks so much for stopping by." "No problem," said Myra, and she got back on the Griffin and headed back towards school, and discovered that en route that really riding a Griffin for many hours was a very different thing than riding a Griffin for flight lessons. And by the time she had landed, now in full dark, and slid out of the saddle, she was having trouble walking. Now she just had the matter of figuring out where they had put the other flying creatures. Yes, where they had put the other flying creatures, and sneaking her Griffin back in among them. She headed first to the stables, but they were empty, and she thought, "Where would I—" She walked the Griffin toward the Stalker Llama cave, and sure enough, there in the dark she could see the low shadows of flying animals tethered around the entrance. She snuck the Griffin up into a spot a little away from the others, and then tied it securely, unsaddling it and brushing it down. When she finished, she looked up and saw that there was a Stalker Llama watching her, chewing its cud. She walked over to it, its eyes tracking her as she approached. She leaned in and whispered in its ear, "Tweety sends Tweety's love." She was 100% sure that she saw the llama flinch. She smiled and headed back to her dorm. She had a paper to write. That is the end for tonight. Thanks for listening to Stories for Wonderful Children. I created today's show, but questions and commentary were supplied by my children. The theme music was written by Brandon Thompson, and our wonderful logo was designed by Silas Wendelin. If you're enjoying the show, please tell someone about it, and leave a review with your podcast provider. You can now subscribe to the show to get extra stories and longer chapters of Myra and the Online School that combine multiple segments into a longer episode. The show's website is storiesforwonderfulchildren.buzzsprout.com. Until next time, I'm Dan Wendelin, reminding you to tell someone you love a story.